नमस्कार, हेलो एंड अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम। मैं हूं तन्वी खुराना और डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ एजुकेशन इन साइंस एंड मैथमेटिक्स NCERT आप सभी के लिए लेकर आया है हमारी ये खास वेबिनार सीरीज लिसनिंग टू लर्न, यानी सुने और सीखें। आज 114वें एपिसोड में हम एंटर कर रहे हैं। आज इस विषय पर हम बातचीत करने वाले हैं, वो है इंडियाज़ पोलर ओडिसी, अंडरस्टैंडिंग द फ्रोजन फ्रंटियर्स। अगर आपके पास कोई सवाल है, कुछ पूछना चाहते हैं, कुछ भी जानना चाहते हैं, तो आप हमसे जुड़ सकते हैं। If you want, you can call us on our number, which is 8800440559. At this moment, you're watching us on PM eVidya channel number 9 to channel number 12. आप चाहें तो हमें ईमेल भी कर सकते हैं। ईमेल आईडी है dth.class12@ciet.nic.in and there are 3 more email IDs as well. अगर आपके पास कोई भी सवाल है, कुछ जानना चाहते हैं, तो आप बेझिझक 11 बजे तक हमसे जुड़ सकते हैं। ये कार्यक्रम 11 बजे तक हम जारी रखेंगे। बहुत सारी बातचीत होगी और जो हमारे आज के मेहमान हैं वो भी आपको बहुत सारी जानकारी देंगे। तो चलिए आपका परिचय करवाना चाहेंगे राहुल मोहन से। स्वागत है सर आपका। Sir is from National Center for Polar and Ocean Research, Vasco da Gama, Goa. And sir would be talking about the frozen frontiers in detail along with the PPT that he has prepared. Let me just tell you that if you have missed the earlier sessions, if you were busy or there were some hassle, then you can watch the earlier sessions from episode 1 to episode 113 on this particular website. This is ncert.nic.in/webinar_series.php. And no matter where you are at this moment, आप हमारे YouTube चैनल के माध्यम से भी हमारे साथ जुड़ सकते हैं। NCERT ऑफिशियल, दिस इज़ आवर YouTube चैनल। इसके लाइव चैट बॉक्स में अपने सवाल लिखिए और हमसे ज़रूर बातचीत कीजिए। आपके सवालों के जवाब देने की हम पूरी कोशिश करेंगे। इस कार्यक्रम को शुरू किया गया था अगस्त 2021 में और आज तक बहुत सारे टॉपिक्स पर बातचीत की गई है। अगर आपके पास भी कोई ऐसा टॉपिक है जो आप चाहते हैं हम अपने आने वाले अपकमिंग प्रोग्राम्स में लें, तो उन्हें ज़रूर सजेस्ट कीजिएगा। चलिए आपका परिचय करवाएंगे हमारे इस प्रोग्राम के कोऑर्डिनेटर से, द मास्टरमाइंड बिहाइंड दिस एंटायर सीरीज, वेबिनार सीरीज लिसनिंग टू लर्न। ही इज़ नोबडी एल्स बट डॉक्टर गगन गुप्ता। सर, अ वेरी वार्म वेलकम।
नमस्ते तन्वी, नमस्ते दोस्तों। आज एक बार फिर से हम आपके सामने हैं। आज हम अपने 114वें सत्र में हैं। इस सीरीज़ से सुने और सीखें, लिसनिंग टू लर्न। इस सीरीज़ में हमने बहुत सारे विषयों पर बात की है। हमने बार जैसा मेरे साथी ने बताया कि आप सारे पुराने सत्र 113 सत्र आप हमारी NCERT की वेबसाइट के इवेंट सेक्शन में जाएं। वहाँ पर वेबिनार सीरीज़ का आपको एक क्लिक मिलेगा और उस पर क्लिक करें तो आपको सारे सत्र वहाँ पर मिल जाएंगे। दोस्तों, आज के प्रोग्राम के बारे में मैं आपको कुछ और बताना चाहता हूँ कि आज का प्रोग्राम अंटार्कटिका और आर्कटिक रीजन्स दोनों ध्रुवों के यात्राओं के बारे में है। इससे पहले भी आज से सही 51 हफ्ते पहले 25 अक्टूबर को हमारे साथ डॉक्टर हर्ष गुप्ता आए थे। उन्होंने अंटार्कटिका पर दक्षिण गंगोत्री की स्थापना की के इस सत्र में थे और वो उस टीम के लीडर थे। उन्होंने वहाँ उस स्थापना से साथ जुड़ी हुई बहुत सारी रोमांचक बातें हम लोगों के साथ शेयर की थी, हमें बहुत समझाया था उन्होंने। उसी क्रम में आज हम खाली दक्षिणी ध्रुव ही नहीं बल्कि उत्तरी ध्रुव की भी बात करेंगे। आज मेरे साथ इस सब बातों पर बात करने के लिए मेरे साथ मेरे दोस्त डॉक्टर राहुल मोहन NCPOR गोवा से साथ जुड़ रहे हैं। आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है डॉक्टर राहुल मोहन। आप दोस्तों, डॉक्टर राहुल मोहन हमारे पास साथ इस सीरीज़ में एक बार पहले भी 22 अगस्त को जुड़ चुके हैं, जबकि उन्होंने फॉसिल्स के बारे में बात की थी। उन्होंने बताया था कि फॉसिल्स के बारे में हम जानकर किस तरह से उनकी आयु के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं, टाइम कीपर्स के बारे में बात कर सकते हैं। साथियों, अगर आपके मस्तिष्क में कोई भी इस तरह का विषय अगर आपके जहन में है कि इस विषय पर हमें चर्चा करनी चाहिए, तो आप ज़रूर हमारे साथ उसको साझा करें। आपके द्वारा दिए गए सुझाव हमें इस कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाने में बहुत मददगार साबित हो रहे हैं, बहुत हमें प्रेरणा देते हैं। आप अपने फीडबैक भी आप हमें साथ साथ दीजिए। आपको इस प्रोग्राम YouTube चैनल पर अगर आप हमें देख रहे हैं तो आपको एक लिंक मिलेगा। उस लिंक में अगर आप क्लिक करके आप हमें डायरेक्टली ऑनलाइन अपने सुझाव दे सकते हैं और उसके साथ साथ एक गूगल फॉर्म भी मिलेगा। उस गूगल फॉर्म को भरकर आप हमसे ई सर्टिफिकेट भी प्राप्त कर सकते हैं। हम आपको ज़रूर ई सर्टिफिकेट देने में हमें प्रसन्नता होगी। इसके अलावा हमारे ईमेल, जैसा मेरे साथी तन्वी ने बताया, आप हमें ईमेल द्वारा भी अपने प्रश्न भी भेज सकते हैं, अपने सुझाव भी भेज सकते हैं। तो साथियों, इससे पहले कि मैं डॉक्टर राहुल मोहन को आमंत्रित करूं, मैं उनका आपके साथ एक बार फिर से परिचय कराना चाहता हूं। मेरे साथी डॉक्टर राहुल मोहन, जो कि बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी के एल्यूमिनस हैं, वो अभी NCPOR नेशनल सेंटर फॉर पोलर एंड ओशन रिसर्च गोवा में ग्रुप डायरेक्टर हैं और साइंटिस्ट जी के पद पर हैं। वो ही हैज़ बीन एसोसिएटेड विद द सदर्न ओशन प्रोग्राम, पोलर micropalyontical studies, marine diatoms for climate reconstruction, and he is closely related with the international cooperation at National Center for Polar and Oceanic Research. The research interests of Dr. Rahul Mohan includes microfossils in polar climate, Antarctic lakes, and Arctic processes. He has supervised 7 doctoral theses. He has been India's alternate delegate to the Science Communication Antarctica Research, National Coordinator for the Asian Forum for Polar Sciences. A very widely known Dr. Rahul Mohan, scientist Dr. Rahul Mohan, has been awarded with several prizes, including the National Geoscience Award 2023 by the Ministry of Mines, Government of India, L. Rama Rao Birth Centenary Award 2024, honours from the Ministry of Earth Sciences in July 2007, Professor C. Naganna Gold Medal 2011, awarded by the Mineralogical Society of India. So once again I welcome you, Dr. Rahul Mohan. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, for being a collaborator in this series. So it's all yours now. Thank you.
Thank you. नमस्कार आप सभी को मेरा और हार्दिक अभिनंदन, क्योंकि दिवाली की फेस्टिविटीज़ चालू हो गई हैं, तो मेरा आप सबको बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं आने वाले दिवाली के पर्व की। और आज हम आपको लेके चलेंगे फ्रोज़न फ्रंटियर्स में, और जहां बर्फीली जगहें हैं उनके बारे में हम बात करेंगे। We'll talk about the Indian Polar Odyssey and try to understand what are frozen frontiers. So first of all, I need to thank Professor Gagan Gupta and Ms. Tanvi for the nice introductions that they have given. So I come from an institute which is based out of Goa, the National Center for Polar and Ocean Research. It comes under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, and probably those who stay in Delhi should locate where the Ministry of Earth Sciences is, because this is one of the unique ministries of India, or rather the world, because I don't see any place in the world which has a Ministry of Earth Sciences. So we are proud. Yeah, okay, yeah. So the Indian Polar Odyssey, let's move ahead as we have limited time and the poles are huge. So let's move ahead and try to understand what are frozen frontiers and why they are important for us. So today I'll be talking about the cryosphere, and this is a famous photograph of the Apollo 17 of 1972, 7th of December. And this picture from the space, from the Apollo mission, was the most downloaded picture. But what you see here is a trans-Antarctic picture, rather showing the Mediterranean and the Antarctic in one picture. And what you see is also a lot of cloud movement and a lot of currents. So this is a unique picture which I wanted to show you, thanks to the Apollo mission, and one of the most downloaded pictures, as I already told you. Earth's 10% of land is covered by ice, that is largely the ice sheets and glaciers, which form a major component of the cryosphere. When I talk about cryosphere, it comes from the word cryos, which is cold, and spheria, that is sphere. Antarctica and Greenland hold the vast majority of the frozen water. So just remember today that ice is just fresh water solidified into a different state of matter, and it contains 70% of the Earth's freshwater supply. So just visualize such large areas with frozen freshwater. Okay, so let's move ahead and try to understand what is Arctic and what is Antarctic. Okay, so there are two different regions, but if you look at the globe, one is the northernmost at the top and other is the southernmost. So what is the basic difference? The basic difference is Antarctica is a huge land mass covered with sea ice on the sea. So it's a huge land mass. Arctic, whereas, is an ocean covered on neighboring countries, and the biggest ice sheet of Arctic is Greenland. Okay, so that's the major difference when you talk about land-ocean disposition. But there is a similarity as well, and the similarity is of the midnight sun. So we are in the northern hemisphere, so Arctic summers are when we have summers in India, whereas Antarctic is in the southern hemisphere. So you have winters when we have summer. So when India is facing summertime, Antarctica is having hard winter time. तो आपको बस ये याद रखना है कि जब हमारे यहाँ सर्द गर्मी पड़ती है तो उतनी ठंड अंटार्कटिका में होती है. तो बस आपको ये जानना है, बहुत ज़रूरी है, क्योंकि अब मिडनाइट सन होता क्या है. मिडनाइट सन ऐसा होता है कि जब आप आर्कटिक के समर टाइम में हैं तो आपको कुछ महीने जब आप पोल्स के बहुत नज़दीक होंगे तो आपको समर बहुत लॉन्ग मिलेगा, है ना, लॉन्ग समर मंथ्स मिलेंगे. वैसे ही विंटर आएगा तो आपको लॉन्ग विंटर मिलेगा. क्यों मिलेगा आपको ये जानना है, और इसके लिए आपको ये अंडरस्टैंड करना है कि अर्थ हैज़ अ नेचुरल टिल्ट 23.5. okay, so therefore that's the major reasoning. So let's move ahead and understand more about Arctic and Antarctic. Well, these are the fur creatures which are known, or rather the attractions of the Arctic. The polar bears. Everyone talks about the polar bears, huge mammals, wonderful. You have wonderful, what should I say, the skin. The skin is black, but the fur is white. And it's a huge mammal. And it lives on sea ice. So that's the worry. So let's move ahead and understand what is Arctic Circle. And so Arctic Circle is nothing but an imaginary line that is 66.5 degree north latitude, which encircles the Arctic region. And as you would see, these are the Arctic countries: Canada, US, Russia, and the Scandinavian countries, including the Greenland. So these are the Arctic countries. But what else is the definition? The definition also talks about Arctic, where the tree line vanishes. The tundra, so the tree line just vanishes, and there starts the Arctic. So it is normally 66.5 and the temperature of 10 degrees C even in the warmest summer. So Arctic is governed by about 8 countries, and largely, as I said, the territory is 66.5: Canada, Greenland, Iceland, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Russia, and the United States of America. Who governs the Arctic? Arctic has many indigenous population. That's again a major difference from the Antarctic. The Arctic Council is the intergovernmental forum which is promoting the coordination, cooperation, and interaction amongst the Arctic states, and importantly, the indigenous people who have been living in the Arctic, or we may call them as Arctic inhabitants. So the Ottawa Declarations define these states as the member of the Arctic Council, the states which are part of the Arctic region. India is an observer state in the Arctic Council since 2013, and there are other observer countries as well. So the larger focus of Arctic Council is on sustainable development and, importantly, protection of the environment. So let's understand now more about Arctic in the next couple of slides, and then I move on to the Antarctic. Just to give you a flavor that India began its Arctic journey through the Svalbard Treaty in 1920, which was signed by the British India and recognized the Norwegian sovereignty of the Svalbard archipelago, while granting treaty signatories right to conduct or work research in those in that area. So India is lucky that way, and therefore, although we started late, but India re-engaged with the Arctic in 2007. So as I said earlier, Arctic has indigenous people. So Arctic has inhabitants. They have their own culture. They have their own know-how. They have their own training. Similar to the tribes, similar to the Indian tribes. We also have in India, हमारे पास भी बहुत सारे tribes हैं, जैसे अंडमान में हैं, उड़ीसा में हैं, छत्तीसगढ़ में हैं, और भी जगह हैं, महाराष्ट्र में भी हैं. तो बहुत सारे इंडिजिनस पॉपुलेशन जिनको हम ट्राइब्स बोलते हैं, उनके अपने रहन सहन होते हैं, उनका खान पीन अलग होता है, और उनको अपने एरिया के बारे में, अपने एनवायरनमेंट के बारे में बहुत कुछ मालूम होता है. तो उनको दे आर नोन बाय डिफरेंट नेम्स. दे आर नोन एज इनुइट, सैमी and tenants and so on, based on the country they resided. So Arctic also has, apart from polar bears, many forms of plants, flowers, and lot of animals apart from polar bears. So Arctic fauna is both terrestrial, that is land based, जो fauna जो land पे मिलता है, और जो fauna marine में मिलता है, और marine fauna. They consist of mammals. आपको फोटोग्राफ में दिख रहे होंगे बहुत सारे, है ना? तो you have mammals like wolves, foxes, musk, reindeers, caribou, and many birds as well, and fishes of different varieties like seals, whales, walruses. You have also heard about walruses, isn't it? And the cod fish and the salmon fish. So Arctic is a rich habitat of hundreds of species of plants and lower plants like algae, lichens, mosses, fungus, and each of them play a very critical role in maintaining the fragile Arctic ecosystem. Okay, so these areas or cryospheric regions of Arctic need to be maintained. And how do you maintain it is the question that I'll keep asking you towards the last. And also, I will request you to think how, as Indians, we can take care of the polar regions. So let's move on from Arctic in the north to the south, coming to Antarctic. And this visual picture shows you a lot of penguins. And you know what penguins are. I need not tell you. Every small kid would know what penguins are. So the name itself, Antarctic. So it is opposite of Antarctica. So Antarctica. Okay. So just put one drop here, and you know it's just the opposite of Arctic. So so there are different types of penguins around the world. Maybe around 17 species of the penguins that we know, but these are flightless birds. They evolved from birds which were flying, but they are now flightless. But they are excellent swimmers now. So they can swim and they can catch the prey, and they feed on something known as the krill. So on probably on the Antarctic mainland, when we talk about Antarctic, there are two things. Antarctica is a proper noun. It's the land mass. And we talk about Antarctic, it also governs the area of the oceans. Okay, so there are largely a few penguin varieties. One of them is an emperor penguin, which is slightly larger, and then there are a lot of Adelie penguins, the smaller ones. And in some other areas or closer to our station, these are the two that you can see. But there are other species of penguins like gentoo penguins and chinstrap penguins as well. So let's move and understand the size of Antarctica. Antarctica is a huge continent, 5 times the size of India. It's 5 times the size of India, 14 million square kilometers. It's a treasure, a frozen wonder, which the world scientific community is trying to understand. There is a lot to be understood, much less is known. And if you look at the Antarctic landmass, it can be separated by the trans-Antarctic mountains, which separates Antarctica into two groups. One is, look at my cursor, the West Antarctic, which is at the sea level, and the East Antarctic, which is the larger of the ice sheet compared to the West Antarctic. The East Antarctic base or the bedrock is slightly elevated compared to West Antarctic is the normal known norm. But there are areas of East Antarctic which are also at sea level. So the size of Antarctica doubles itself during the winter. How does it double itself? There is something, you have the coast of Antarctica, which are the shorelines, if you can allow me to say, and here the ice sheets hang over the ice sheets hang over the marine waters. But what is important is each winter the sea water freezes and forms the sea ice. And what do you require? Because you have salty water, so you require a temperature of minus 2 degrees centigrade to freeze the water. And it is freezing cold in the winters. When I said there are dark freezing months, and all the sides of Antarctica are covered by ice. So Antarctica is a land of extremes. All adjectives can be used: the coldest, the windiest, the driest, and the whitest continent that you can ever dream of. So it is an astonishing treasure of the earth, where the lowest temperatures recorded have been minus 89 and much below as well. But you take it as minus 89 as per WMO, and the highest wind speeds have been 327 kilometers per hour. Normally, our strongest wind in India is around 100 to 150 when the cyclones strike, and you know the devastation. So 100 to 200 kilometers per hour is sometimes very often, and there is a terminology to it which I'll not describe, and it is for you to try to find out what are katabatic winds. Okay, so who explored Antarctica? So there were many stories and many things in the history, but Captain James Cook is one name why I would like to take, the British explorer. And why I'm trying to tell you is, never take things for granted. Whenever you work or in any domain of science or humanities or anywhere, or in electronics or anywhere in space. So Captain James Cook said, and that was way back in 1773, I make bold to declare that the world will derive no benefit from it. Because he felt that there is a huge risk in exploring the coast in these unknown areas, in unknown seas, and therefore said that man will never venture further than I have done. But that was not the case, and we all know now. So let's look at the history of Antarctica, talking about the three brave men, Roald Amundsen, Robert Falcon Scott, and Sir Ernst Henry Shackleton. So Roald Amundsen was the Norwegian explorer, wanted to be famous and wanted to reach the South Pole. So it all started in October 1911 when Roald Amundsen started his journey for the South Pole with his small team and reached in December 1911. Robert Falcon Scott, a British explorer, also wanted to reach the South Pole and before Amundsen, but he started slightly late in November and he had tough weather conditions and he reached only in January 1912. So it was 1911 and Robert Falcon Scott reached in 1912 January. But sadly, the bad weather condition and probably some more at this point of time, hindsight, it is always easier to talk about things, but could be that planning could have been much better. So when you talk about operations in these cold areas, the planning has to be very meticulous. And the next important man that I would like to tell you is Ernst Henry Shackleton, who participated in 1901-1902 Trans-Antarctic expedition but failed miserably due to something which was known as scurvy, vitamin C deficiency, and they had to return. But he was a person who didn't want to lose heart and wanted to go around Antarctic. 1915 was the time when Shackleton tried Antarctica and the famous endurance vessel got crashed. More in the history, and I'm not going to talk today on that, but let's understand why all these explorers or why this exploration was happening in this. Largely all these were some component of sealing or whaling, and then came the Antarctic territorial claims. The British were the colonial rulers, and in 1908 they were the first ones to lay claims on Antarctica. So Antarctica is the only continent on Earth that does not have a single sovereign nation. Instead, it is subject to territorial claims of many countries. So Antarctica किसी का भी नहीं है, पर ये क्लेमेंट कंट्रीज हैं जिन्होंने शुरू के दशकों में क्लेम किए, 1900 के दशकों में क्लेम किया. क्यों? क्योंकि वो जा पाए वहां पर. तो जो फर्स्ट था उसने क्लेम कर लिया, ऐसा था. But now everything is frozen in time. Okay, the Antarctic is frozen and no claims are being entertained. The Antarctic Treaty was one such thing which froze everything in time, and largely it came up because of the International Geophysical Year in 1956. And the treaty was signed on 1st December 1959 by 12 major nations, where USA and Russia or the USSR did not claim a component of Antarctica, but they said we would have the full claim if so desired. So they restricted themselves and did not claim any territory in Antarctica. But it was 56 IGY, International Geophysical Year, that led to the signing of the treaty, and therefore we celebrate each year Antarctica Day on 1st of December. But it came into force in 1961 on 23rd June. So what are the tenets of Antarctic Treaty? There are 14 articles, very simply written, and largely for environmental protection of Antarctica and to have the solid foundation of international cooperation. The Antarctica is for peaceful purposes only, freedom to do scientific investigation, have international cooperation of different countries, be transparent in data sharing, prohibits nuclear tests. This was the key component. You cannot dispose radioactive waste, and provides visits to the continent, that is Antarctica, and complying with the Antarctic Treaty, the 14 articles. Okay. So 12 countries signed in 1959, as I told you in the earlier slide. 56 signatories as on 2023-24, 29 consultative parties. When I say consultative parties, they have voting right, and 27 non-consultative parties that don't have voting rights. There are many experts, observers, international science unions, and so on and so forth. Not going into this slide again, as I have said, Antarctica Treaty main points: no military use, no nuclear explosions, no radioactive waste, freedom to do science, freedom to exchange ideas on science. All research bases, or stations as we call them, are open for inspections by other treaty partners. They can come on a prior notice and inspect your research bases. So what is the Antarctic fauna? There are penguins, there are seals, there are some birds, there are snow petrels, there are skua, large whales. And what is this? This is the large feed of the penguins, the whales. These are nothing but the krill. The krill is nothing but the shrimp, crustacean, very tiny, your pinky finger, highly proteinaceous, but they are also having a problem as the Southern Ocean or the ocean surrounding Antarctica are getting warmer. Okay, so they have a problem at hand as well, because their populations are moving southwards, and therefore you have a problem at hand. So let's move ahead and try to understand why the polar regions matter. आखिरकार हमें क्यों पढ़ना चाहिए अंटार्कटिका और आर्कटिक के बारे में? हम अच्छा खासा अपने देश में हैं, जो ट्रॉपिक्स में हैं, हमको अच्छा मानसून मिल जाता है, हमारे पास अच्छा एग्रीकल्चर है, और कभी कभी तेज बारिश, ज़्यादा बारिश होती है तो मुसीबत होती है, कभी कभी ड्राउट्स आते हैं, सूखा पड़ता है तो दिक्कत होती है। तो हमको पोलर रीजन्स ऐसा क्यों पढ़ने की ज़रूरत है? क्योंकि ये तो हमसे बहुत हजारों किलोमीटर दूर हैं। पर अगर आप पहले की पिक्चर याद करो जो मैंने आपको दिखाई थी अपोलो 17 वाली, तो अर्थ इज अ ग्लोब विच इज वन, है ना, एक ग्लोब है। हम बात जरूर कर सकते हैं देशों की, विदेशों की, जो जोग्राफिकल बाउंड्रीज हैं, वो अर्थ ने जोग्राफिकल बाउंड्रीज नहीं बनाई, वो इंसान ने बनाई। तो जो वेदर और क्लाइमेट सिस्टम है वो नेचुरल बाउंड्रीज, जो फिजिकल बाउंड्रीज हमने बनाई वो नहीं जानता। तो इसलिए पोलर रीजन्स बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। और मैं आपको कुछ तत्व समझाने की कोशिश करूंगा कि अगर सी आइस कम हो जाता है या आइस शीट मेल्ट करती है तो क्या हो सकता है आर्कटिक में और एंटार्कटिक में, है ना। तो कुछ तत्व आपसे अभी शेयर करता हूं बहुत जल्दी में, और समझाने की जल्दी कोशिश करूंगा। तो एक है एल्बिडो इफेक्ट, जिसको हम रिफ्लेक्टिविटी भी बोलते हैं। तो आजकल आपने देखा होगा कि घरों की जो छतें हैं उनको सफ़ेद करने के लिए लोग बोलते हैं कि आप सफ़ेद पेंट से उनको पेंट करें। क्यों? क्योंकि जो अर्थ है उसकी जो सन की जो रेज है वो रिफ्लेक्ट ज़्यादा हो। सो ब्राइटर सरफेसेस रिफ्लेक्ट मोर लाइट, डार्कर सरफेसेस एज यू नो एब्जॉर्ब मोर हीट। इसीलिए बोला जाता है ना कि समर्स में आपको सफ़ेद शर्ट पहननी चाहिए या हल्के कलर पहनने चाहिए, विंटर्स में आपको डार्कर कलर्स पहनने चाहिए। ठीक है। तो पोलर रीजन्स कंट्रोल, तो पोल्स जो आपने देखे आर्कटिक एंटार्कटिक, दे कंट्रोल द अर्थ क्लाइमेट सिस्टम। तो कैसे करते हैं ये? दे आर द लार्जेस्ट रेफ्रिजरेटर, दुनिया के सबसे बड़े फ्रिज मैं मानता हूं कि एंटार्कटिक और आर्कटिक, बिकॉज दे आर द कूलिंग चैम्बर्स ऑफ योर अर्थ। तो वो एक क्लाइमेट इंजन की तरह काम करते हैं जो ग्लोबल क्लाइमेट, एनवायरनमेंट और बायोस्फीयर सबको इफेक्ट करते हैं। अगर आप सोचिए कि बर्फ पिघल जाए तो जो पानी है वो हीट ज़्यादा लेगा, तो बर्फ को, जो बची हुई बर्फ है उसको भी पिघलाएगा। तो इसलिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि रिफ्लेक्टिविटी इन स्नो एंड आइस रीजन्स की वजह से होती है। इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट अबाउट द सी आइस, जो मैंने बोला कि बर्फ जो समुद्र की सतह पे बनती है एंटार्कटिक के नज़दीक या आर्कटिक में जमती है, वो क्या करती है? बर्फ, जब मैंने आपको बोला बर्फ क्या है, फ्रेश वाटर, आइस इज जस्ट फ्रेश वाटर। सो व्हाट हैपेंस टू द सॉल्ट? सॉल्ट का क्या होता है, सॉल्ट एक्सपेल होता है ना। तो इसीलिए डेवलप होता है थर्मोहेलाइन सर्कुलेशन, जिसके बारे में अब बात करेंगे। तो वो कहाँ पर होता है, वो दो रीजन्स है, आर्टिक एंटार्क्टिका में डेवलप होता है डीप वाटर, और नॉर्दर्न हेमिस्फीयर में नॉर्थ अटलांटिक में डेवलप होता है। तो दीज आर नथिंग बट salinity, that is thermo, that is temperature, and salinity driven currents. So density driven currents हैं। ये क्या करते हैं, ये इसलिए important है कि ये एक्सेस हीट लेते हैं कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और एक बफरिंग करते हैं आपके वार्मिंग को, और फ्रेश ऑक्सीजन। जब यहाँ पर डीप वाटर बनेगा ठंडे पानी में जिसमें नमक है तो बर्फ जम जाएगी, जो सी वाटर चारों तरफ सी आइस जमेगी, ठीक है। तो नमक तो आपका एक्सपेल हो गया, तो वाटर्स ज़्यादा डेंस हो गए तो सिंक करते हैं, रिच इन ऑक्सीजन with lot of material, and goes down, and therefore this is known as the global ocean conveyor belt. And this is just a pictorial as to how it functions, the thermohaline circulation. I'll not go into much details, but आपको just एक समझाने के लिए कि अगर ये बर्फ पिघलती है, जो सी आइस है, जो समुद्र पे आइस बनती है, अगर वो पिघलती है तो इस कन्वेयर बेल्ट का क्या होगा, आप सोचिएगा जरा, अगर पिघलेगी तो क्या होगा। अब उसी तर्क में आर्टिक एम्प्लीफिकेशन की बात करते हैं। तो बर्फ जब टेम्परेचर बढ़ रहा है, हम जान रहे हैं कि आज टेम्परेचर राइज है, देयर इज अ राइज इन टेम्परेचर। सो व्हाट इट इज डूइंग, इट इज मेल्टिंग द समर सी आइस। समर की जो सी आइस है उसको आर्टिक में वो मेल्ट कर रही है। तो जब मेल्ट कर रही है तो पानी ओपन अप हो जा रहा है। जब पानी ओपन हो रहा है तो पानी हीट ज़्यादा ले रहा है, तो गर्म हो रहा है, तो ज़्यादा एब्जॉर्ब कर रहा है हीट, तो और आइस मेल्ट कर रहा है। तो इसको टर्म दिया आर्टिक एम्प्लीफिकेशन, एंड दिस यू शुड अंडरस्टैंड, बिकॉज एज द टेम्परेचर राइजेस, so the temperature of the ocean or the water surrounding the Arctic will also rise. So what you are seeing in Arctic is a naturally reductive sea ice, and that's a big worry, क्योंकि आपको पहले बताया मैंने कि पोलर बियर कहाँ रहते हैं, सी आइस को पसंद करते हैं, है ना, उसी पे उनका खाना है, उसी पे रहना है। और पोलर बियर भी कहाँ चले जाएंगे अगर सी आइस खत्म हो जाएगा। तो देयर इज अ प्रेडिक्शन दैट सी आइस इन द आर्टिक में वैनिश मोर सूनर देन वी ऑल थिंक। और एक इंपॉर्टेंट चीज, आर्टिक पे मेजर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर परमाफ्रॉस्ट पे है। परमाफ्रॉस्ट इज नथिंग बट सॉइल विच इज 0 डिग्री एंड बिलो फॉर 2 years और मोर। पूरा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मेल्टिंग चालू हो गई है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इंक्लूडिंग रेल नेटवर्क। क्या होगा आप सोचिए, अगर परमाफ्रॉस्ट थॉ होता है तो उसमें कार्बन है, उसमें मीथेन है, और उसमें एक खतरनाक चीज़ है जो है एंशिएंट जर्म्स। आपने कोविड को ऑलरेडी देख लिया है, बट देर आर मेनी बैक्टीरियाज एंड वायरसेस विच आर डॉर्मेंट लाइंग इन दैट permafrost, which can get activated if it all melts or the melting has already started in the Arctic. Another important facet of Antarctica is the mass loss. हम देख रहे हैं कि बहुत ज़्यादा स्नो एंड आइस मास लॉस हो रहा है, आइस शीट्स मेल्ट कर रही हैं। तो ये आप कलर्स चेंज होते हुए देखिए, तो ऑरेंज से लाल हो रही हैं, तो ये सब मास लॉस है। और कितना मास लॉस है, 125 गीगाटन्स पर ईयर, दैट्स इक्वलेंट टू 3 ओलंपिक साइज स्विमिंग पूल्स गोइंग डाउन ईच डे। और अंटार्कटिका पूरा कवर्ड है अभी तो, और अगर हटा दें तो कैसा दिखेगा ये आपको बताने की कोशिश है। और अगर पूरी आइस शीट हट जाए तो कितना सी लेवल राइज करेगा, अबाउट 60 मीटर्स नियरली। और आपका कुतुब मीनार कितना ऊंचा है आपको देखिए, इंडिया गेट मैंने अभी दिखा रहा हूँ 42 मीटर्स। तो जो सी लेवल राइज है वो बहुत कम आपको लगेगा, 3.3 मिलीमीटर्स पर ईयर। और सी लेवल राइज कैसे होता है, थर्मल एक्सपेंशन और आइस शीट मेल्टिंग। थर्मल एक्सपेंशन मतलब पानी गर्म होगा तो एक्सपैंड होगा ओशन का, और आइस शीट्स सिमिलरली मेल्ट करेंगी तो दिक्कत होगी। और जो कोस्टल सिटीज़ हैं दे विल हैव प्रॉब्लम ऑफ सी लेवल राइज। अनदर प्रॉब्लम इज द कोल्डर ओशंस एब्जॉर्ब मच मोर कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड। और अगर आप वेबसाइट पे जाके खोलें नोवा की या एनएचडीसी की, तो आप देखेंगे कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड लेवल्स हैव रीच्ड द हाईएस्ट पॉइंट फ्रॉम द इंडस्ट्रियल एरा। और एक प्रॉब्लम और है, जो कोल्डर ओशन है वो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और हीट ज़्यादा एब्जॉर्ब करते हैं। तो अगर वो ज़्यादा एब्जॉर्ब करेंगे तो वीक एसिड बनेगा, कार्बोनिक एसिड, विच इज़ नॉट गुड फॉर द कैल्सिफायर्स और द प्लैंक्टन विच सिक्रीट कैल्सिटिक टेस्ट। तो लेटेस्ट न्यूज, कल की न्यूज़ है कि कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड लेवल्स हैव रीच्ड अलार्मिंग रेट्स एंड मोस्ट न्यूज़पेपर्स कवर्ड इट। So let's quickly now run through the Indian Polar Odyssey. Okay, this is very, very important and close to my heart. So India's Antarctic journey started way back in 1956. When I say that, you will be amazed because India raised the question of Antarctica in the General Assembly of UN. And these were the two great men, Arthur Samuel Lal, the India's permanent representative to United Nations, and V.K. Krishna Menon, chairman of the Indian delegation, who raised the question of Antarctica when the IGY was going on. And they emphasized on the peaceful utilization of Antarctica. So India raised the concerns that we should not be using nuclear weapons and testing, because India had feelers that some countries would like to use it. And probably this could have been the triggering point for the claimant countries to think about signing the Antarctic Treaty, which was going on for long. And it is not easy in the respective nations to go and tell that we are freezing all our claims, which includes Argentina and many other countries. India's quest for Antarctica officially started with Operation Gangotri in 1981. Dr. S.Z. Qasim was the leader, which took a 21-member team to Antarctica. On 6 December, from Goa, it sailed on the ship which was chartered from Norway Polar Circus. And largely this was a confidential event which was not told to people until we reached Mauritius, where people were announced. And on 9 December 1982, India hoisted the flag and we reached Antarctica. This was the ship track what we took to Antarctica in the first expedition. Coming to the third expedition, I'm not going to the detail about Dakshin Gangotri. Then again, a great team led by Dr. Harsh Gupta and his team members constructed the first Indian research base in a record time of the summer months, and Dakshin Gangotri was created, and it was on the shelf, that is on the margin of Antarctica. So it was abandoned in 89 when it was submerged, and it was decommissioned in 1990. The National Center for Polar and Ocean Research was earlier known as Antarctic Study Center and then was known as National Center for Antarctic and Ocean Research. This is the center which forms the pedestal if you want to go to Antarctica, Arctic, Southern Ocean. So we provide the pedestal, and it is under the Ministry of Earth Sciences, and you can see the beautiful location. So we operate from Goa, but we have two research bases, Bharati and Maitri. Maitri is the older station, so if you draw a perpendicular from Cape Town, you will reach Maitri, and from the west coast of India, if you draw a perpendicular, you will reach Bharati. So Maitri is pretty old, and today's newspaper carry the government's nod for Maitri 2. It was established in 1988 in Shirmachar Oasis. This is how Maitri looks like, and between Maitri and Bharati, it is 3,000 kilometers apart. And look at this small clip. Why I want to show you is that they were all conjoined nations earlier. It was known as the Gondwana land. And just look at the numbers here. So around 180 million years ago, the Gondwana land countries or the nations separated. So Africa, South America, Australia, Antarctica, and India moved northwards. See the movement of northwards, and the mighty Himalayas came in. And 34 million years ago, Antarctica glaciation started. Bharati is 3,000 kilometers away from Maitri. This is 2012, and you have the ISRO domes there for sending data to Shadnagar through our own polar satellite orbiting. This is how Bharati looks during the winter sometimes, and this is Aurora Australis. And I'm not going to tell you why auroras are formed. This is a question for all of you. Why auroras are formed? And in north, we operate in Himadri, that is in Svalbard, largely due to the 1920 treaty which we assigned. So this is Svalbard, and it's much easier to go to Arctic than to Antarctic. Antarctica, you can only go during the summertime. Arctic, there are regular flights which you can take. And this is how the Nielsen Scientific Village looks like, where we have a leased property, that's Himadri, okay? This is Himadri, and this is where we are, probably the last living northernmost population in the northern hemisphere. History of Arctic research: 2007 first expedition to Arctic, and 2008 research base Himadri was established, and we have been going on forward since then. Himalaya also is important for us, and therefore we have established a small research base which is in Lahore Spiti in Himanch, because we feel that we need to, when we are looking at polar regions, we cannot isolate Himalaya. Himalaya is very, very critical as well. So only we are looking at a small component of Chandra Basin. So somebody said, Ban Ki-moon, which is the earlier UN Secretary General, the poles are not remote, they are central. What happens there affects us all. So Science on the Edge, I'll just run through some of the pictures of the field work that is being done, some of our colleagues from Geological Survey of India, and just see how the helicopter is perched. And this is how the Antarctic rocks during the summer may look like. People are looking at erratics, taking samples of rocks for different geological studies. Then you have coal seams in Antarctica. And this is Mohammed Sadiq from Geological Survey of India showing the plant fossil. So what does that mean? So Antarctica was warm and humid. Okay? 200 million years ago, it was warm and humid, maybe tropical forest or temperate forest, because you have fossils of plant. You have coal. Coal requires conditions, and that you should search why coal is formed there. Snow and ice studies. We have an ice core lab in Goa, maintaining at minus 20-25 degrees. These ice cores are transported from Antarctica. What are ice cores? There's a barrels drilled, put into solid ice and taken out. What does this show? What does give us? They give us different components of environment, what Antarctica must have faced. The top is the recent and the bottom is the oldest. And this is, of course, some scientific surveys, and you can see in the field you would need to live in this containerized modules. So it's a very, very tough life in Antarctica. It's not easy. And in Greenland, they were doing under a dome. So you can see the bubbles that are there sometimes present in the ice cores, which can tell you about the gases that get trapped during the formation of snow and ice. We also look at sediment cores from the ocean, because when you look at longer time scales, you need long records from the ocean. Million time scales, you require records from the ocean. And it looks like a solid pastry, isn't it? But then it is very rich. You cannot see by naked eye, but very rich in something that I love to study, that's microfossils. But they have a lot of stories to tell. This simple, thick pastry has a lot of story to tell, and it's again a long column which is drilled into the ocean. And everybody is so happy when the sediment core comes on the ship. And we also look at lakes of Antarctica, trying to work on the lakes where we can derive sediments and look at, apart from ice cores, we need to look at any archives that are available, including the sediments in the lakes of Antarctica. They again tell of some few thousand years or 40,000 or 50,000 years of history of Antarctica. So what's under the sea ice? People thought that there is nothing, but there is huge biota, and you can see beautiful images of diatoms and other phytoplankton that live under the sea ice. So just imagine if all the sea ice melts, what will happen? In the Arctic, we have the in-dark mooring, which is bottom teetered. So there is weights here and there is float here. and there are a lot of instrumentation through which year round you can collect the data. And once you retrieve, you can see the barnacles, how they capture the moraine. And we also look at plastics. Plastics is something which is man-made long chain polymers, but are reaching the polar regions, both from air, in snow and ice samples, and in water. And a lot of studies to show that plastics are creating a problem and will create a problem unless we all understand two things. First is, how do you cut your emissions? All of us have to take care. Tonight when you sleep, think of one thing that you can help us to do to preserve the Mother Earth. Can we stop the plastics? Yes, we can. How we can? It all depends on the humans. Atmospheric studies are being done in the Arctic. In Himalaya, we are doing glacial monitoring studies and also looking at snow and ice samples. And I'll stop here because I've been told I need to finish off quickly. But I would just say that this presentation is a humble tribute to all those men who dedicated their life to the icy continent and to the polar world. It's a salute to all the people involved in the program since the inception for more than 4 decades. There are scores of men and women who work behind the curtains to make this program a success. We thank all the expedition members and the participating organization. We at NCPOR feel proud to be the chosen organization to run the Indian Polar Program. Every failure or mistake teaches us a new lesson. One needs to be passionate and brave to take up scientific operations and science in the cryospheric regions. And I end up with this slide. Read it. We join in this battle not as nations, but as citizens of the world, aware that the protection of these ecosystems, or I would say these delicate ecosystems, is so essential for global climate balance. I think all policy makers, all people need to understand this. Antarctica is the heart that pumps life through its marine currents, and its preservation is everyone's fight. It is time for global commitments to be strengthened and translated into effective measures that ensure the survival of this natural sanctuary. And this is not my saying, this is Barbara's saying, and I just copied it for the simple reason it is so emphatically, this is the message of my presentation. Take care of the continent and be sure of what you do, because what you do here affects our poles. And what happens at poles also affects us. So thank you, and a very warm namaskar, and a very happy and a safe Deepavali to each one of you, wherever you are listening. Take care. Namaskar.
थैंक यू वेरी मच फ्रेंड. आपने तो बिल्कुल ऐसा लगा कि दोनों कॉन्टिनेंट्स को हमारे स्टूडियो में एक साथ ले आए हैं. और कहाँ ठंडे से एकदम से आपने दिवाली की बात की, तब लगा कि हाँ हम इंडिया में हैं, भारत में हैं, और थोड़ा मौसम यहाँ पर इतना ठंडा नहीं है जितना कि इन पोलर रीजन्स में है. आपने बहुत सारे विषयों पर बात की सर. और मतलब जो जो सवाल हमारे पास आ रहे थे, नेक्स्ट स्लाइड में शायद आप उसका आंसर ऑटोमेटिकली दे रहे थे. कुछ बात मैं आपसे करना चाहूँगा. आपने बात की दोनों आर्कटिक एंड अंटार्कटिक रीजन्स को कंपेयर करने की कोशिश की. आर्कटिक रीजन को आपने शुरू में ही बताया कि जो कि एक लैंड मास से घिरा हुआ हिस्सा है, और वहाँ पर एक कुछ ज़्यादा ठंडा रहता है. एक रीजन है जिसमें कि टेम्परेचर्स बहुत कम रहते हैं, जहाँ पर की सारी अपनी परमानेंट ह्यूमन सेटलमेंट है, फ्लोरा है, फौना है. अनलाइक अंटार्कटिका, Antarctica is now as we see is surrounded by the water. You also talked about the Gondwana plates, that is the bifurcation from the Antarctica region, which took place billion years ago nearly. So is it the difference because of which ये जो अंटार्कटिका के चारों तरफ पानी है और आर्कटिक के चारों तरफ पानी नहीं है, लैंड मास है? How do you see this?
Okay, so this is very interesting question and very important for a geologist. Largely आपको ये समझना है कि जो गोंडवाना लैंड बिखरा, और ये पहली बार ऐसा नहीं कि अंटार्कटिका ने अपनी पोजीशन चेंज की है. So I have gone very briefly into because I had just 50 minutes, but there is a lot of science, because These continents didn't open in one day. They took millions of years. And आपके जो गेटवेज बने, ओशन गेटवेज, ठीक है, ओशन गेटवेज बने, फिर वेस्टर्लीज डेवलप हुई, जिसकी वजह से लार्ज सर्कुलेशन है, एंटार्क्टिक सर्कमपोलर करंट, जो वन ऑफ द वॉल्यूमिनस करंट है, जो एंटार्क्टिका को क्रायोस्फेरिक आइसोलेशन देता है और उसको आइसोलेट करता है, वेरस आर्टिक वॉज ऑलवेज एन ओशन. Antarctica is a huge island, I say. It's not only a continent, but an island. एक island है जो marooned है और कोई भी देश उसके पास नहीं है. The closest is South America, and because of the westerlies which kept isolating Antarctica from the heat, that is what was taught to us. But it is not so now. Things are really serious. Things are happening, and as you said, Arctic obviously is an ocean. You cannot compare the two, but I was trying to give a flavor of some comparison between the two. Tectonically and geologically, ice sheets formed much later in the Arctic.
Oh.
Greenland is one of the place where you have the largest ice sheet, which is just 12% of Antarctica. That's the largest. And whereas we have sea ice on the ocean water, which is more important in the Arctic.
That's great, sir. Our producers are saying to wind it up. We have many questions about the radioactive waste you talked about, which apparently are the sources of energy there in the Arctic regions and other regions too. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us. We look forward having you again on our studio this time again. Thank you very much, sir. We have paucity of time, we are not able to take time. Tanvi, can you take it ahead for the next session?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mohan, for being with us. It was indeed a very informative program, and before we wind up, just want to wish you a very happy and safe Deepavali. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gagan sir, for being with us today. And before we wind up, we also have to show you the topic of our next program, and that is.
दोस्तों, एक बार फिर से हम आसमान में चलेंगे. अब हमारे पास इसरो के बहुत सारे लोग आए हैं. उन्होंने स्पेस से जुड़ी हुई विभिन्न विषयों पर बात की है. हमारे साथ डॉक्टर A.K. अनिल कुमार एक ज़माने में आए थे पिछले साल, जो कि फर्स्ट Ph.D थे, फर्स्ट डॉक्टरेट स्टूडेंट थे इंडिया में, जिन्होंने कि स्काई वेस्ट के ऊपर बात की थी. अभी हाल ही में मेरे दोस्त डॉक्टर O.P. श्रीवास्तव ने इसी विषय पर एक फीचर फिल्म बनाई है. इसका नाम है द डर्टी स्काई. इस डॉक्टर O.P. श्रीवास्तव हमारे साथ इस स्टूडियो में 31 अक्टूबर को होंगे. स्काई हमारे आसमान में जुड़े हुए जंग के साथ जितने भी विषय जुड़े हुए हैं, इसकी विवशता और व्यहता को बताने के लिए O.P. श्रीवास्तव हमारे पास होंगे. आप उसको ज़रूर सुनिए. 31 अक्टूबर फ्राइडे, सेम समय 10 बजे सुबह. आप हैप्पी दिवाली, बहुत बहुत शुभ दीपावली. धन्यवाद.
धन्यवाद सर. धन्यवाद सभी दर्शकों का भी हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए. आशा करते हैं आपको ये कार्यक्रम पसंद आया होगा, और इसी के साथ हम आप सभी से इजाज़त मांगते हैं. आने वाला जो अगला कार्यक्रम है वो बस कुछ ही क्षणों में शुरू हो जाएगा. टॉपिक होगा ऑनलाइन ओरिएंटेशन प्रोग्राम ऑन एक्सटेंसिव यूज़ ऑफ इंडियन लैंग्वेज primers. So with this, thank you so much once again. Have a good day ahead. I'm Tanvi Khurana and I'll take a leave of you. Namaskar.